Just like, I mean, come on, this is a 90-degree angle. If this is alpha, is my screen not showing? I'm saying if this is alpha, and this is an angle they didn't tell you what it is. Remember the rule for these types of questions? You're supposed to know without being told to label information in. If you know this is alpha and you know this is 90 degrees, does that just mean a half pi? Because a half pi represents 90 degrees. Minus alpha like that, which means this is also. Which means this angle is going to be what? What's all of these angles add together? It's a triangle. Triangle's 180. Pi means 180, so it's pi minus these two angles, isn't it? You see how I mean? Like, oh wow, we found that already. So angle, so we write down example how you do this. Angle AOB equals to pi minus a half pi minus alpha. Do we leave it like that? No, remember we've got to put brackets over there when there's two entities. Minus a half pi minus alpha, which is equal to pi minus, just do the math on this. No need to rush. Plus this, minus this. Just basic algebra. And then we realize, oh, okay. Pi minus this becomes a half pi minus a half pi. If you're wondering why we put brackets over there, remember the rule, whenever there's two things that make up something and you're going to minus that, you better put brackets in front. Example. If S represents, say, this is a separate example to show this. I'm saying if we want to do the calculation, this person's calories, the amount of calories this person eats is equal to breakfast calories plus lunch calories, and the amount of calories this person eats, it might be, say, afternoon tea calories plus late night dinner calories, right? So S minus T, is it really correct to write B plus L minus A plus D? Not really, because it's technically this, isn't it? If you're going to minus A plus D. If that example is still not obvious, think about it this way, okay? If S equals to 2 plus 4 and T equals to 1 plus 2, okay? S minus T is the same thing as 6 minus 3, which is supposed to be equal to 3. Now, if we did S minus T is equal to 2 plus 4 minus 1 plus 2, is that going to still equal to 3? 2 plus 4 is 6, minus 1 is 5, 5 plus 2 is 7. How would we have made it correct? There had to be a bracket over there. Because, think about it this way even, okay? If you're going to take away something, let's just say, if you're trying to take away this person's weight plus this person's weight, is that really the same thing as taking away this person's weight then adding this person's weight? Or is it more correct to say logically taking away this person's weight and taking away this person's weight, if you're taking away the combined weight of these two people? Make sense? That's just the general rule in algebra. Remember, every single rule in algebra comes from a basic example, like undeniable basic example. So back to this question over here, very simple. Angle AOB equals to 2 alpha is just the same thing as calculating. Well, it's just from realizing the correct habit over here is any information that gives to you, you're supposed to label. Obviously, angles when we're dealing with these types of questions is in radians. A half pi minus alpha, a half pi minus alpha, alpha. So angle AOB, you write down angle AOB equals to pi, because the whole three of these angles added together is pi radians, minus a half pi minus alpha, like this, minus bracket a half pi minus alpha, like this, equals to pi minus a half pi plus alpha, minus a half pi plus alpha, equals to, now this, remember the rule, pi is just one of these pi's, minus a half is a half of a pi. Oh, so this is going to give you a half of a pi left. Take away another half, just gets rid of it. 2 alpha, and we proved it. Remember, when you're doing these questions later, you're supposed to pause the beginning of the video and then see if you do the question correctly. If you can't do it, then you look at the solution, and then only move on when you can write the whole thing beginning to end. Any questions? Yes, this is being filmed, but it's only my voice in the video over here. That's why the way I'm answering a lot of your questions and explaining this might seem a bit out of context, because it seems like someone's just, you might be asking me a question and it might seem like I'm not answering it. That's not the case. It's just me explaining the way that's going to be much more useful to you later on if you revisit it in the form of a video. I hope that makes sense. No, you're not talking to a crazy person. Anyways, part 2. Area of the shaded segment in terms of R and alpha. Remember the rule over here? Whenever there's more than one component for these types of questions, circular measure, you just need to find, before you even focus too much about how you do the numbers and write down the calculations, how about common sense first? As in, how about you write down what's even going to get you your answer? You'd have to realize this first, agreed? The pizza slice minus the triangle. You know what I mean? Like, and then once you realize that, it just means what? Let's focus on the pizza slice first. So how do we get that pizza slice? Oh, we realize the pizza slice is a sector. And what's a sector? You're supposed to know from MF19. A half r squared, which means, oh, it's just a half times, you don't need to be told, it's going to be 2 alpha times r squared equals to alpha r squared. Does that satisfy the condition? We're only allowed to use this letter and this letter to describe it? Yes, that satisfies that condition. Next step, how do we write down the area of the triangle over here? Area of the triangle over here is pretty straightforward, because isn't it just going to be, remember the general rule for any triangle ever? A half AB sine C, remember that rule? The area of any triangle ever. Remember there's 2 triangle formulas? This is just basics over here. Skip this part of the video if you already know this, but if not, remind yourself. If you have a triangle like this, and we know vertical perpendicular height is like 2 meters, horizontal height might be 6 meters, area is just going to be 6 times 2 divided by 2, isn't it? Which is 6 meters squared. That's just the basic one. Remember, half base times height. That's the one from like primary school. But the IG formula, for Cambridge formula, for every triangle ever, remember, you just need to know one angle and the 2 sides that make up that angle, and the area is always going to be equal to, if this is 3 and this is like 4, for example, the area of any triangle ever is, and if this is maybe say 60 degrees, area is just going to be what? A half times the 2 sides that make up the angle times sine of 60 degrees. And you can see how that's applied over here, because, well, you've got a triangle, you've got an angle, you've got the 2 sides that make up the angle, so just minus what? So the triangle area is just going to be a half times these 2, a half r squared, times what? Times sine of this angle, sine of this, 2 alpha. So the answer is just this theta r squared, which is the sector, minus the triangle, so it's just going to be alpha r squared minus a half r squared sine 2 alpha. Sine, is that a number or is that a function? Exactly. Is that really a violation? No. But also think about it this way, for 2 marks. Was that, if you had to get rid of the sine, does that seem like 2 marks worth of work? Of course not. You see the beautiful thing about Cambridge? It's just, they give you so much to work with.